What's up, everyone? I'm Travis, and you're watching Upgraded RC. Welcome back, everyone. Now, I know we've completed our top 5 upgrade video series for the SCX10III, but I told you guys there was going to be more upgrades coming. So we're going to start a new video series. Let's see. Let's call this new video series Continued Upgrades, and we'll just keep on going. And since we left off with video number 5, I think it's only fitting that we start this video series with video number 6. So what are we doing today for video number 6? We're going to be removing this red plastic ugly diff cover from our AR45 Portal axles and replacing them with some of Hot Racing's CNC machined brass diff covers. Now, Hot Racing is boasting, and it's even stamped right here on top, that these weigh 56 grams a piece, and that's what it's going to add to each axle. That's going to give us a lot better lower center of gravity, and it's also going to give us a lot better stability. Now, I'm going to go ahead and weigh these on the scale so we can check them against that to make sure it does weigh 56 grams. And after that, we're going to put them on. Now, I know I could easily just take this tie rod right here off and the drive shaft, and I could get these diff covers off and put the new ones on fairly easy. And if you're doing this upgrade, guys, maybe that's what you want to do. I have a big problem with the axle here. I absolutely hate the high gloss black plastic look that they've got on this AR45. I know that's the way they come out when they're printed. Nothing you can do about it. But I'm going to remove both front and rear axles today. I'm going to strip them all down. I'm going to clean them up really good, and then I'm going to paint them with some of this flat black paint. So this is going to make it look way more realistic, and it's going to also make it really easy to repair any rock damage that we have. We can just spray some of this on there, and it'll take care of it. We'll be good to go. And when I put this back together, I'm going to go ahead and use some of the Vanquish Blue Gear Rock Lube. This stuff is great, guys. I've used this for quite a while. I really like it. It's got great adhesive qualities that stick to your gears. Awesome. It's water resistant. It's non-toxic in case you got kids around or pets or something. Also got an anti-wear compound in it, so it doesn't wear down near as fast as regular grease. So if you guys are doing this, put some of this in there. You'll appreciate it. You'll love it. And then we're going to go ahead and throw our diff covers on, and we'll see what it looks like. So let's go ahead and get going on this. Now, if you're going to do what I'm going to do and take your axles off and you've never done this before, just a quick little run over for you here real quick. It's pretty simple, guys. All you're going to do is take off your tires and wheels, and then you're going to take off your suspension, which there's a bolt on the top and a bolt on the bottom. When you take the bottom bolt out, that's going to release both the lower links from the axle, which is also going to release your drive shaft. Then the only thing you have left is this steering link here attached to your steering servo horn. Go ahead and disconnect that, and your panhard bar mount, which I would disconnect from the axle instead of the frame. It's a lot easier. And then on the back, all we've got is our tires and the 2 shocks, and then you've got your links on the top here, which will be released when you take those down. These will be released when you take the shocks off, and your drive shaft will fall out, and that's pretty much it. You'll have the axles in your hand. So go ahead and do that. We got our axles off of here, and guys, I'm sorry, I did tell you you need to remove your shock. You do not need to remove the whole shock. I'm getting ready to change out the oil in my shock, so I just took them off, and I'm sorry I didn't mean to tell you that. You only need to remove the lower link on the shock to get the axle to drop off. And also the steering linkage was a lot easier to remove from the axle than it was from the steering servo horn. And I already told you to remove the track bar from the axle as well instead of the frame, just make everything a little bit easier. Now let's go ahead and tear these axles apart. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the wheel spacers here, along with the washer behind it. And then there's a small Allen right here in your 12mm hex nut that goes to your wheel. Go ahead and take that off so you can slide this out of the way. I'm going to take this Allen off here to remove the entire tie rod. I'm going to take this Allen out here so that I can remove the whole drive shaft, then we'll be down to the basic axle. Well, now it's starting to look more like an axle. Next, I'm going to go ahead and remove these 4 Allens here. That will remove our diff cover. And then I'm going to take these 2 Allens out here and here. These are actually called step bolts that go into your steering knuckles. So you can take that off, and that will release the portal housing here on the axle as well. And then after that, it ain't very much at all to get the rest apart, guys. Once you get that done, you could just go ahead and pull these portal housings right off the side, just like that. And then you've got your shaft here in the center. You can go ahead and pull the shaft out. This is your long side, and then this side here will be your short side. So you can pull both of those out. And then we can go ahead and take our diff cover off too, which the easiest way, guys, is just to go ahead and push on the pinion in the back, and it'll pop this out. Watch. See that? And then everything comes out with it. Your bearing carrier here, which has got your, actually I guess it's called your locker assembly, but that kind of rides right there. You've got your 2 bearings on either side. You've got your ring gear and your locker assembly in the center there. So that comes out, and guess what? That's pretty much it. We got to get our pinion out of here, which if we just do that, our pinion falls out. It's got another bearing on the other side. There's another bearing here. There is a bearing in each end of the axle. Take those out, and that's it. We'll have an empty axle housing, and I can go ahead and clean this up and start my painting process. Okay, now that our axle housing is ready for paint, let's go ahead and disassemble our portal housings here with the gears so we can get them ready for paint too. And it's pretty simple. It's just these 4 Allens right here, and this whole thing is going to pretty much fall apart. Okay, so after you get your bolts out, then you can take this cover here off. Now be careful when you're taking this apart. There's a bearing that's probably going to stick on the inside of the cover as well as a spacer. Make sure you know the relationship of them and how they go back. So there's your cover, and it's got a bearing here. There's also a bearing that rides right here. It's stuck to our shaft. Let's pull this off here so I can show you what's going on. Okay, so here is the bearing that rides in this part of the cover, and then there's a little spacer. Be careful and don't lose this. This is where this goes. This goes right here on top of the bearing here. It's a little spacer to keep that from riding right on your plastic there. Okay, so we got all of our components and all of our bearings out of here, and then I went ahead and I put the diff cover back on, and I put both of the housing covers back on everywhere. I did that so I wouldn't get no paint inside. And I don't care about these anyway, so if they turn out flat black, it's only going to make them look better. I went ahead and stuck napkins in the end here, paper towels, so that none of my bearing surfaces would get any paint on them. I wanted to make sure that everything stayed out of there. That's about it, guys. I think we're ready for paint. I got my steering knuckles here. Like I said, put the covers back on them, got the napkins in there. Let's go ahead and paint these. So while our paint's drying outside, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to clean up all of our parts. So I got everything cleaned up here, and I got it arranged the way I want it, so I know where it goes and I can put it back together fairly easy. Now, as I was cleaning everything, guys, go ahead and inspect all your parts while you're cleaning them. Take your bearings and physically put your finger on it and turn it. Make sure it's not gritty or doesn't stick anywhere. It doesn't feel, you know, like there's something wrong with it or there's a burr in it. Make sure all your bearings are good, and, you know, take your ring gear and your pinion gear and look at all the splines on here and make sure the splines are in good shape. Nothing's chipped or cracked or falling apart, because then you're just going to put this back together and have to take it apart again. So it's better to check everything out now. And one thing I do want to show you guys, On this gear right here, the larger gear that goes inside the portal housing, there is a certain way that it goes. It can go this way or this way, and it's very deceiving to the naked eye to try to see inside here, but one side is just a little bit more cupped than the other side. It seems like it's, I'm not gonna say it's square like other people do, but it's not as tight of a fit as the other side is. So it took me a magnifying glass in a couple minutes to really see what was going on, but luckily I could see the wear marks from my pin right here hitting the side. So let me zoom in here and see if I can show you guys what's going on. Right inside here, if you look at the very bottom of it, you can see one side is a little bit rounded, and the other side, like I said, I'm not going to say that it's square, but it seems like it's a little bit square on the bottom. Right there, you can see on the bottom, it seems like it's not as round or as oval. So anyway, I put the pin in several times, and it seems like it does fit one way better than the other. And I went ahead and put a mark on it with a magic marker so I would know, because it took me so long to figure it out. Now, luckily, I was able to also see the wear marks inside of here where my pin has been wearing. So that helped me out as well. But just pay note to that, guys. This does go one way. If you're not having any problems or issues and you take it apart, just keep it in the same direction you took it apart and you'll probably be okay. If you hear a clicking sound inside of your portal housing, that's what it is. It's because your pin here is not sitting as flush inside of this cavity as it should. It's rocking back and forth. So that's why it's important to make sure you put this on the right way so your pin will sit down inside here nice and flush like that, and there's no rocking back and forth. So let's see what Hot Racing gave us. And for you guys that are interested, our part number today is SCX10III, and it says heavy brass differential cover SCX10III. Well, that's what we got. Let's see what we got in here. Let's see, I got a razor blade right here sitting here. Go. Here is the actual brass diff. Boy, that's beautiful, guys. Look at that. Look at how pretty that is. It almost looks, I mean, it's brass, but it looks like it's gold or something. Not that I'm a gold fan, but that's just beautiful. They got the HR right here that they machined in. I'll say they did a really good job. It feels kind of heavy. We're going to go over here and weigh it in just a second. They also gave us another set of screws in case your head's stripped out or something, I guess, or if you want silver. Mine are now black. And they gave us a sticker. So I have a multitude of Hot Racing stickers. I like Hot Racing products. All right, and we're over here at our trusty scale. Let me turn it on here, and we're going to weigh it against a 100-gram weight here. It weighs out at 99.9. I'd say that's pretty damn accurate. Okay, we'll let it go back to 0. Let's see what one of these Hot Racing diff covers weigh. It weighs 56.6 grams. These guys were not joking. They are pretty much right on the money, even just a little bit heavier than they said. That's awesome. So if we put 2 of them on here, 113.9, almost 114 grams. That's probably going to really help the stability, and all that weight on the low end is going to be great for climbing and more traction in general, guys. All right, time to put it back together. We're going to start by assembling the portal gears back inside of the housings. What I'm going to start with is I'm going to grab this axle shaft right here and this pin right here. I'm going to take my brush and a little bit of my rock lube. I'm going to put just a little bit on that pin right there. What that's going to do is that's going to hold that in place while we do everything else we need to do. So that's in place now. Let's go ahead and take our gear next, the larger gear, and remember which way it goes. Like I said, I put a dot on mine so I would know. So I'm going to go ahead and put that down now so that that sits inside there like that. Now we're good to go on that piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a little bit more and I'm going to put it on the end of this shaft right here. just so that everything in there is plenty lubed up. Grease doesn't hurt anything. Next, we're going to go ahead and we're going to lube this right here up. We're going to put a little bit on here, and they say you only need about the size of a pea. I don't know. I'm just going to kind of go around it here and make sure I've got a little bit inside of each tooth on the gear. And I'll probably do this to both gears, and then I am going to feel pretty good about having enough on here. So I don't know about the pea or not, but we might have a couple peas on here. Like I said, grease doesn't hurt anything. It's good for everything. I'm going to get that pretty good there. Nice and liberally greased. Okay. Now I can stick this inside of my housing here. That'll set like so. Next, we're going to take this little gear right here, and I'm going to put just a little bit on that. Okay, that'll probably be enough. We'll go ahead and stick this in here. And this one just kind of rides in here by itself like this until you get the axle shaft through the housing. So basically, it's going to sit like this for right now. It looks like that. And I wouldn't even bother trying to turn it. It's just going to bind up in here. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to take the other cover here, and we're going to drop our bearing back inside there. Remember, we checked all of our bearings out. They all work good and everything. It drops in like so, and then we can go ahead and put our screws in, and then we'll tighten it down. Now, if you're using a power driver, don't go all the way with it. This is just to help you get it there. Okay, don't tighten it up at all. Tighten them up by hand. You'll strip them out. Remember, this is a metal screw inside of plastic, so have a little bit of control with what you're doing. All right, so after I get that in there, I like to take and go around and just kind of snug them up a little bit the way they're supposed to be. Okay, that should be pretty good. Now, the last thing we got here is this little spacer, and don't forget that. That spacer goes right here and inside of the housing, like so. That helps hold your hex nut off just a little bit so it won't rub on the plastic. So once you're done with the portal gear assemblies, now you can take your 12mm hex nut and go ahead and line that up with your hole here and stick this in. That way your spacer won't fall off and you won't lose it. Now normally, guys, I would tell you that this little pin right here, this Allen you're putting in, I'd say to put Loctite on it, but I'm going to tell you you don't need it right now, because if you have either in your wheel or if you have a wheel spacer, when this 12mm hex is in there, it's in there solid. So it's tight. There's no way that Allen can back out. So I don't think you need Loctite there. So we'll just go ahead and put that on there and just tighten it up. Pretty snug. Don't kill it or strip it out, but it should be pretty snug. There you go. It's not going to move very good right now because as you move it, the top gear is just locking up because it's not on a shaft to help center it. So it's pretty much useless to try to turn it right now. Just go ahead and get those together, and then we'll put our axles back. And now we can go ahead and start assembling the axle. We'll start with the front, and what we're going to do is we're going to take one of the bearings for the end, and we're going to put this bearing in here. And then we're going to take the other bearing for the other end and put that bearing in there. Okay, kind of snap in, make sure they're in there good. Now we're going to go ahead and take the bearing for our pinion, the big one that goes on the inside, we're going to snap that in here. That one goes in there like that. Okay, so now we've got our pinion here, and we're going to go ahead and lube our pinion up a little bit. We'll take some more of our Vanquish blue gear lube here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and put a little bit on here, go all the way around, just kind of give it a generous coating, just like everything else we did. Now we'll drop this down inside here, like so. And then we're going to put a bearing in the back here. Right back here in the back, there's another bearing that goes right here. Go ahead and put that in there. Okay, so now we're on our way. Next thing we need is going to be our locker assembly here with our ring gear. And we'll go ahead and take one of our bearings here, and we're going to put just a little bit of lube on the inside of this bearing. Just kind of keep this lubed up so that it does good. Like I said, grease doesn't hurt anything. All right, got that on there. We're going to put that to the inside. Next, we're going to go ahead and coat our splines here. Everything just wants to be lubed. Okay, about like that. I'm going to take our other bearing here and do the same thing. Just a very little bit on the inside of it. That'll keep that all lubed up. We'll put our locker assembly together. There you go. Got it all together. Now we're going to go ahead and drop it into our axle here. So we can just take and put it right here where it goes, like so. And then we're going to go ahead and turn it and make sure it turns. Okay. Wow, that feels really good. Really smooth and very lubed. Okay, now we can go ahead and put our Hot Racing Diff Cover on here. And I did check, just so you guys know, the silver bolts that it comes with, you have to use those. The black ones that are stock are just a little bit too long. They get tight before they bottom out. So go ahead and use the ones that it was supplied with. Let's go ahead and put our diff cover on here now. Goes on there like that. Wow, that's a really good fit. I mean, that just pops right in place like it was meant to be there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and screw these down in the back now. So now we got our brass diff cover on there, and I got to tell you, that's starting to look really good. I actually really like that look. Let's go ahead now and we'll stick our axle shafts in next. We're going to start with the long side here, and you don't really need to do this. I'm going to just put just a little bit right here to help it slide in and out a little bit better and just lubricate that surface right there. So we're going to go ahead and stick this in here through this end, through the bearing. Turn it until you get it in the locker to where it goes all the way in and bottoms out. Now we can go ahead and stick our short shaft in the other side, and I'm going to do the same thing with just a very, very light coat there. Put that in this side, turn it until it engages in the locker all the way. This side's in. Okay, now they're locked up. They feel solid. Let's see, does it turn freely? It turns freely that way and that way. Oh yeah, that feels really good. Okay, let's go and put the rest of it back together. So this next part here is just a little bit tricky, guys. You've got to get the square shaft lined up with the square part of this gear here, and then you have to orientate this so that you can put your step bolts in to hold the steering knuckles on. So go ahead and stick this in here. I don't know how to tell you to do it, just do it. So once you do get the shaft in the square hole there, go ahead and then you can orientate this to where you can put your step bolts in here, which will hold these on. And guys, when you're tightening up these step bolts right here, make sure you don't go too tight so that these don't turn very good at all. You know, you want these to be free moving. You should be able to do that and they can bounce back and forth freely. They shouldn't be stuck at all. What I do is I take these bolts all the way down, both sides, until they stop gently. And then I back them back out the same exact amount on both sides until I feel that they're moving freely in the way that I want it. Maybe you want it a little bit tighter, I'm not sure. But if you have it too tight, guys, you're going to end up wearing out your servo. It's just too tight for the servo to turn. So I like mine about like that to where I can sit here and do this and they'll move just a little bit. I mean, it's not flopping around, but it's definitely free. All right, guys, so we can put our rear axle together now. Big bearing here for the pinion. We'll drop that down in the center. All right, so once we get that in, we can go ahead and grab our pinion and we'll put some more of our rock lube on there. About like that. Go ahead and drop that down in there. Just like so. Now we'll go ahead and take our locker assembly and ring gear. And by the way, I did check all of these Allens here just to make sure that they were tight on both axles. It's just something I think you should do. Make sure nothing's coming loose. And we'll take our 2 bearings here for the locker assembly. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put just a little bit of grease on the inside of these bearings here. Not much, but about like that. We'll put this one on. Next, we're going to go ahead and do our ring here. And we'll get all the splines on this one. And after you get your locker assembly and ring gear together, go ahead and drop that in there where it goes. And make sure it's pushed down all the way. Turns freely. Feels great. We can take and pop our diff cover on here. Just like that. Boy, that one fits just as good too, guys. That's awesome. They did a great job of machining that. And don't forget your bearing back here in the back. Go ahead and put that other pinion bearing in that needs to be in there. And make sure that's seated all the way down. Now we can go ahead and use those screws that were supplied with our diff cover and put those in. So now we can go ahead and install our axle shafts. So we're going to do the same thing we did before. Just put a little bit of that on there. And go ahead and stick it on in. And turn it until it goes into the locker. And we'll do the same thing on this side. A little bit on the end there. Stick it in and turn it until it goes in the locker. Okay, that feels pretty good. Now we can take our bearings. These bearings go in the bottom right here, guys. You pop those in the bottom there. That's what's going to hold the other part of the axle shaft. Okay, got that in there now. Now we can go ahead and start building our portal gears. So same thing as before. We're going to take our shaft and our pin, and we're going to put just a little bit of grease on the pin to hold it in there, and we're going to drop it into our shaft. Then we're going to get our gear, and remember which side goes down. But put that on there like that. We're going to lube this up. All right, so now we can take and drop this into this bearing here, into the housing, like so. And then we're going to grab our little gear and put a little bit on that as well, like so. And then we'll stick this in here and get that lined up between your gear and the square axle shaft, and it'll go right in. Now we can go ahead and drop this on. Might be a little bit tight on that bearing there. Just got to get it over that spot. Then we can go ahead and put our screws in here and tighten it down. See, after you get all your gears assembled and your screws on the cover there, go ahead and turn it, make sure it turns freely and there's no binding or issues or anything. Then you can go ahead and don't forget your spacers here. Put your spacers back on and go ahead and put your 12mm hex nuts back on. Now you can go ahead and put your drive shaft back on, and I would recommend putting a little bit of Loctite right here on this Allen that holds your drive shaft in. There's nothing there keeping it in place. I mean, it could come out. So go ahead and line that up and drop this pin down in there and tighten it up. So now let's go ahead and wipe this all down and we can put everything back together and see how it looks. We got it all back together. Let's go ahead. I want to see how close this is to hitting here on this. Boy, that's right there. It's got just a little bit, but it's right there. Okay, let's see if we got any clicking noise here. I don't hear no clicking noise. Everything works. Hear no clicking noise. Let's go ahead and put it all back together. All right, guys, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video on our axle upgrades to the AR45 Portal axles on the SCX10III. I believe that the extra weight we've added is going to give us a better lower center of gravity, and it's going to make our climbing ability a lot better. Besides that, it looks pretty good. Well, if you guys have any questions or anything, please don't hesitate to ask me. I will get back with you. It might take me a while, but I promise I'll get back with you. Until next time, I'm Travis. You're watching Upgraded RC. Peace out.